Hi guys, welcome back. Nick here from Gimme, and today we're going to be talking about center of gravity in the driver. What do we mean by that? Well, basically the different models that you can see here. We've got the Max model, CG is a little bit further back, and you've also got the standard core model here in this SIM model, where you can see the track is a bit further forwards, pushing that center of gravity forwards. What does that mean? Well, the Max model should be a little bit more forgiving with the CG forwards, lower spin potential, more distance. That's the claims. We're going to test it. We're going to get into it. Stay tuned. Okay guys, so I've got two slightly older model drivers here, but they were incredibly popular when they came out. The SIM models, they came out about 4 or 5 years ago now, 2020, 2021. Got a lot of play on tour. Up until last year, Colin O'Cara still had a SIM in play as well. I'm sure TaylorMade were delighted about that. I believe it's now moved, but they were very, very popular. But they did have several different models out. They had the Max model, center of gravity a bit further back into this part of the golf club here. That usually makes it higher MOI, moments of inertia, more forgiving. And then you also had the standard core model, this one here, which as you can see has the weight tracked a little bit further forwards, which naturally moves CG placement forwards. What is the difference between these two driver heads? Well, in essence, this driver here should be more forgiving, should provide slightly more launch, slightly more spin, all lofts being the same. This model here with the center of gravity being further forwards should create lower launch, lower spin, potentially depending on the golfer and the characteristics of their delivery of course, but also a bit more movability in the head as well if you want to be able to do that. So this was the model that you would have seen predominantly on tour, but there was some very good golfers at the time playing the standard Max model as well, including Dustin Johnson, I believe. I'm going to hit a few shots with each today. I'm going to use the same shaft in each of them, so very comparable. We're going to look at, does that center of gravity move, launch and spin for my particular characteristics, and I'll be able to describe a little bit more of the data, whether it's going to influence the way you hit the golf ball as well. Okay guys, so I'm going to hit the Max model first here. Putting both the drivers down side by side, very comparable. There is slight differences in the footprint, and obviously in the bottom of the sole, they look slightly differently as well, aerodynamically. They are aimed at slightly different golfers. This is the Max model, so this is maximum forgiveness. CG placement, center of gravity placement, all the way back here. What we know about that is the further you drive and the further down you drive that center of gravity, it makes the driver head more forgiving. It ups what we call MOI, which is basically the amount of movement you'll get on an off-center hit. Now, what's the trade-off for that? Well, typically when you move CG further back and deeper, it also creates a little bit more launch, a little bit more spin. And you know, for certain category of golfers, they're trying to get away from that. They're trying to hit the ball lower, flatter in terms of the spin numbers. So this head's not for everybody, but if you are somebody who struggles with a little bit of dispersion, trying to keep it in the fairway, this model might have been for you. Now, there's some great offers still to be had on these. I'm going to hit a few. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so just hit 3 with the SIM Max there, and overall, very forgiving. Certainly slightly higher apex from it than what I would usually expect to see. I use a slightly lower spin driver model myself currently, and so I would definitely say that the pitch of the flight was a little bit higher than what I typically look to see on my own drives. Now, the SIM is a little bit closer to the current model that I personally use, and definitely has a slightly more forward center of gravity, so it'd be interesting to see if the initial launch and therefore the peak height comes down. Definitely felt like I lost a little bit of distance there with the Max model. Very forgiving, certainly in terms of the strikes that I put on the face, and the dispersion of the shots was fantastic. But of course, I don't want to lose any distance if I can't. I'm not the longest player in the world. I'm trying to get everything out that I possibly can from my club head speed. So, you know, launch, spin, ball speed are still important to me personally. I'm sure they're important to you. I'm going to see if the SIM can actually knock it past that Max model that we've just used. Put them on my usual flight. Okay guys, so I hit 3 shots there with each, and again, you know, I'm not a robot, so they weren't absolutely perfect swings on each of them, but it's always good to get a bit of a test across the face in terms of dispersion as well with all these different models that I'm going to hit. I did a video earlier on where we were testing the TSI free versus the GT free. We definitely found with that particular video that across the face performance was definitely in favour of the latest model, the GT. With these two heads here, we're testing more centre of gravity, the Max model versus the more core model with the centre of gravity further forwards. Just want to show you the differences between both of those heads and how they can influence ball flight in terms of pitch of flight, spin, launch, ball speed. So what we definitely found here was with the Max model, dispersion was absolutely fantastic. Left to right, much tighter. If I'm looking for a fairway finder, then the Max model is definitely going to be the one for me. But I definitely found I dropped a little bit of ball speed, not just against the SIM model, the standard core model, but also against my usual gamer and even some of the other driver performances that I've done reviews on recently. So the Max model, more forgiving, but it's not designed to give you out and out ball speed like the other models are. That centre of gravity being a bit further back definitely makes the initial launch a little bit higher, kick the spin up just a fraction as well for me, so the overall total yardage for me was a little bit down there. Then we moved into the core SIM model, CG further forwards as you can see there. Definitely noticed when I put this driver down by the golf ball, it sat a little bit flatter. What I mean by that is the face angle was a bit more toe down, and so it gave me the impression that I wasn't going to overdraw it quite as much as that impression that I got when I put the core model down. It definitely felt like I could turn that driver over a little bit more. So again, if you're a golfer that suffers with a slice or missing fairways to the right hand side, would definitely also look at a driver that you can put into an upright model, or maybe something that sits a little bit more upright like that sort of core Max model would do typically. The SIM model, the lower spin models typically sit a little bit more toe down, and they're designed for guys like myself who don't have any problem turning the ball over from right to left. And actually we're trying to eliminate the big left hand side, which definitely for me is something I'm trying to do from shot to shot. With this model, definitely launch and spin came down a fraction, and therefore the initial or the actual apex of the flight came down as well. What that basically gave me was pretty comparable carry numbers, a little bit longer because the ball speed was also up with this particular model, but definitely the total yardage was longer. So if I'm looking for a driver to give me out and out distance, I'm definitely looking at the standard core model, the lower spin models. That's where I'm going to focus on my attention, because it's going to give me the launch and the spin and the ball speed that I'm after to try and maximize my club head speed there. So I think overall, quite an interesting test. They definitely did what they were supposed to do. Higher launch, more forgiving, across the face performance. Definitely a little bit hotter in terms of ball speed, spin. Worth saying that the dispersion was a little bit bigger with this particular SIM model here. So, moving forwards as well, that would be something that you have to consider. But more forgiving, slightly hotter, slightly quicker. Definitely what the manufacturer designed them for. Again, hope you found that really interesting. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on social media. Look out for the next review coming out very soon.